Hi people! So, this is probably going to end up titled something like, in which I make 4 corsets because I'm indecisive, because that's in fact the case. And you know, I desire an exoskeleton. Now, I do have some spinal issues as well as some ribcage issues, so we may have to get creative, and I'm going to do some stuff that's not technically correct, but is necessary in order for my personal comfort. So we'll see what we'll see, I guess. Okay, we have 4 different corset options, all of which require a spoon busk because I just find that to look more comfortable and more relaxing. There's this one which has these panels that are just plain corded, as well as a few bones on some of the panels, but it's not nearly, you know, full boned or full corded. It's about evenly split. There's this one which has this really interesting quilting on the waist edges, plus some cording here and some bones and some more quilting up there. It's got 2 different waist panels, which could be definitely very interesting. There's this one which is completely and fully boned, with the exception of, you know, the place where the eyelets actually have to go, which is definitely going to be a challenge. And then the last one is this one, which is, it's got cording in all of these little gusset panels, and then it's got boning along the middle and the edge of each panel, plus, you know, spoon busk. So, I'm not sure which one I actually want to do first. I think I'm probably going to do this one, the first one, just because it looks the most straightforward, and yes, I say that including this very weird shaped gusset here. Not 100% sure how I'm going to go about this particular nonsense because these corsets are made for people with much smaller dimensions than I happen to have. What I'm doing right now is I'm marking the grain line on these pieces, and that's because they're on this pattern. The orientation they need to be on the fabric, so this line here, this is not the grain of the fabric, this is the grain of the fabric. They're all lined up, you know, vertical, and this will give a lot of shaping to the final corset, but it is required, because I'm never going to remember these orientations, you know, on my own, that I mark it, because, you know, as one of my housemates says, cheating's like winning, only easier, and this is definitely, you know, cheating just a little bit, but yeah, if it saves me having to cut out and make with the fussiness later, I'm going to take that option and be grateful. If I have to make as many mock-ups as I suspect I probably will have to, I'm going to be very sad. But, you know, such is the life of people with wonky spines. If you're wondering, my back does this kind of S-curve right where lumbar meets thoracic. It was diagnosed when I was 12, so I've been living with it for, you know, at least half my life at this point. I turned 25 in just a couple months. And yeah, so that's been my life, and I've learned how to deal with it as I've gotten, you know, older, and I no longer have to carry around book bags and stuff. School was murder on my back. But yeah, it's just one of those things where you learn to live with it because it's just part of your body. It's annoying, but yeah. This is why I want you know, multiple exoskeletons, because I want the extra lumbar support. I want my back to not have to do quite so much work trying to hold itself up, and that's why we're probably going to play a little bit of cheeky buggers with some spots, just for comfort's sake and for not, you know, overstressing my poor back when it doesn't need to be. Also going to be making at least 1 pair of stays, but that's a project for another time. Yeah, once I've got all that I'm currently trying to make done. So that was definitely a problem for once I had made progress on all of these. And now I cut these pieces out so I can try to upscale them a bit. So these are all the pieces all cut out, and I labeled them, you know, front, gussets, like where they go, so I don't forget. Because I didn't mention it, these are all from the Leicestershire County Council Symington collection. This is the number for this specific corset. It is 31400. And now we begin the process where I attempt to upsize these because this was originally made for someone with a 22 to 24 inch waist. My waist measurement is 34.5 inches, and I have a 40-inch bust. So I really don't, and these are obviously not the correct size. These weren't full size from the picture. They were just full size from what I could get it printed at. I'm going to have to do quite a bit of resizing. So thus begins the part that may take a while and may turn into a giant pain in my entire soul. But, such is life. We are going to mark a nice straight line here, just to give myself something to balance against over on the edge. So I have something to go with. Oh no, let's mark it at 2 inches out from the edge, just to be safe. Because I am going to have to expand probably all of the parts of this. I consider a lot. And these quilting rulers are great for upsizing because you can lay your piece against it and see, comparatively how far each piece goes. Like this piece is, math is hard. This piece is about 10 inches by 1.5 inches at the widest. So I can use that as kind of a reference to scale it up. So say it's down to here. And I'll probably also have to lengthen this just because I have a fairly long torso. Over here so you can maybe see some of what I'm doing. Let's try it. This angle. Oh, I should show you the cat. This is Theseus. Theseus, hey buddy. He's a darling. Hey baby. Hi. Yes. Good kitty. He knows he's not allowed on the table, so he's sad because I'm doing stuff on the table. He's keeping me company because he's a good baby. We can just get the tripod to work again and zoom in a bit. Right. So I need this to be at minimum about 40 inches around at the top. I'm going to measure how much 1/2 of this is total at the top, because that will give me a good idea for how much I'm going to have to expand it. Where you can see that. This is just me doing the quick and easy method. Just going to, no, kitty cat, don't try. If you eat my pattern pieces, cat, we're going to have words. No, no, no. He's being very cute. But also, this is not permitted. No, leave it alone. I will play with you once I'm done recording, okay, buddy? So, this is... This is going to take some messing with, but basically I'm just doing my best to... It's about 1.5. Good kitty. And I think these pieces, where it's just a strip of, rectangular cording, are going to be the easiest to expand for the places that I need, actual, significant amounts of extra space. But for the parts that need slightly more shaping to them, I'm going to have to get a little bit funky in places. And that's going to be an adventure. Alright, so those are all measured, and now we take it to the part where I have to do math, so we're going to go to the trusty computer. and have it do my math for me, because that is not the part that I am relishing. And while I'm doing that, say hi to the adorable child. Hey buddy, say hi to your public. Your public awaits. Right. So the first piece, center front, is 3/4 of an inch wide at the top. I'm just going to narrate this while you guys stare at the cat, because yeah, I know who takes priority here. So center front is 3/4 of an inch at the top. The first gusset is 1 1/2. Then the second gusset is 2 inches. The first actual front panel, not just the center front where the bust goes in, that's 1 1/4. The second front panel, which is one of those just plain strips of cording, is 3/4 of an inch. Then the side front piece, which is a really interesting shaped piece that I'll show you in a minute, is 1/2 inch at the top. Side back, which is another just strip of cording, is 3/4 as well. Followed by another 3/4. Plus the last 2 strips, center back and one of the just straight cording strips, are both 7/8 of an inch. All told, that comes out to just under 10 inches, so I'm going to have to double the size, or well, the side-to-side size of this, not the whole entire piece. But I'm going to have to at least double the size of that, plus I'm going to have to increase it up to fit the actual length of my torso. Here, I'll pet the cat for all the viewers. He's a good baby. He likes the ear scratches. Huh, yes. Alright, now get to the part that we're actually trying to film. Patterning, my nemesis. So real quick, measure where I want it to be, which is just a little bit above my nipple, just so it's not, squishing in and cutting in uncomfortably, to just about at my hip bone. It might end up being a bit longer than that, it might not. That works out to about 17 inches. So we will see if that's how that ends up working. Just write that down so that I can reference back to it if I need to. So, now we use the quilt ruler. Hope that we don't knock any absolutely necessary pieces off the table too much, as they are made of paper and therefore susceptible to drafts. And if I disappear, that's why. Oh my god, the cat. He's just being so adorable. If you lived with this cat, you would know what I mean, but he's just an absolute darling child. One of those cats who just... He's really playful, and he's giant. He's not actually cat friendly, which is sad to me, because my cat is at least tentatively willing to make friends, and he is not so much. But my cat's also afraid of the rest of the world, so if she doesn't decide to make friends, and it's not going to hurt her all that much, she'll just continue hiding, which I guess is quantitatively, a hurt, but I don't know. Right. So if the top of this is 3/4 of an inch and the bottom of it is 1.5 inches, we know that we need to have the top piece just about, well, I mean, this is where I start getting into funky math, and I'm not actually sure I'm doing this correctly, but if we're going to need to just about double all these pieces, and some of them will need to be a little bit wider to be anyway, just to make up for that extra. Wait, no, I'm doing a little bit of a lacing gap. I can just double the size, I think, and make sure that, they're all shaped correctly. Right, so we need the top at a little bit of an angle. We're just going to copy the angle over from the piece, if we can. So the top goes out to be 1.5 inches. That's about right there. Up a little bit. And if the bottom goes Oh wait, I guess this would also depend somewhat on my busk. And I do have a nice spoon busk. How long did I get this busk to be? This busk is 14 inches, so that tells me how long the corset can be, because I can't have it egregiously longer than my busk. I mean, I can have it a little longer. Doesn't matter. I've seen some drawings and such, and like I found a couple extra examples of corsets that are a bit that just don't have any busk in the bottom couple inches, but I don't want it, you know, too loose in the bottom, just because that doesn't sound super comfortable. But 14 inches should do. So just trim it up by a few inches. There we go. This is why we keep all the pieces around us. It does show a little bit of space at the bottom for the busk, so I can bump it out just a little bit at the bottom and leave it a little gap. But if that is 1.5 inches, it's going to need to come out 3 inches to there. 3 inches over to here, thereabouts. And this is a mock-up, so basically anything that I do, I'm not 100% sure on, and that's why we have some very cheap muslin to monkey around with and, you know, see what actually might end up working. And that looks like it's a much steeper curve than I have. And this is also where we test to make sure that all of our lines and stuff actually meet up, is in the mock-up. If it doesn't, that's why I'm not using any fancy silk or linen or cotton or anything on this. It goes down fairly straight from here. That's curving inward, that's not fairly straight. Comes in at a fairly sloping angle right there. I'm pretty sure once I get the bust to work right, it'll function fairly well with my waist. I don't mind if my waist is a little compressed. I don't want it, you know, super scrunched in. I'm not about that kind of stuff. I don't want to do the waist training, you know, tight lacing stuff, just that's not the look or essentially anything that I'm going for right now. And now this is the part where we get to actually have to follow grain line and stuff. Mark this as center front, mock up 1. There we go. Now this is going to have to match it along there somehow. This is where I needed to have brought down another quilting ruler, because this one is large and kind of a pain to keep digging in and out. But oh well. And I'm going to do all of these basically along the same line horizontally, just because that's going to be easier for me to keep track of a little bit. This piece is 1.5 inches at the top, going down like 4 inches, that give or take, which the first piece, like I said, went down about 10 inches. It went 9.5 technically. So if this is where the math is hard. So this is, I'm gonna try this, and I don't know if it's right, but if my math is anything like correct, this should go down about 6.25 inch. 6.25 inch. So there's that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That does not look right, but you know, that's what mock-ups are for. So that goes there, and then that would need to go out 3 inches, so it would need to go up a decent bit, up and over 3 inches. And then go from there, it comes down to a pretty sharp point, but it curves. It's not just a straight triangle, so it comes down just like this. And like I said, I don't think this is going to end up being perfectly correct. That would be why we are doing mock-ups. So, gusset, as I get done with each of these little pieces, I'm just putting it out of the way. I am not, under any circumstances, getting rid of it. This one I can probably try to fit down here somewhere and just save myself a little bit of paper, just because, well, I think I mentioned, but this paper is expensive. Yeah, I'd probably put it down here. That looks like it would work okay. This is the part I'm dreading the most, honestly, just because it looks the hardest to actually, upsize. And I don't like this shape. It's going to be a pain in my soul. So, okay, it's about 6 inches long, so my math is correct. Okay, I think I see why that looks so wrong. I think I just figured out my first error. So, I was basing some stuff off different pieces of math. So that may have been why we were having issues. So, this is 9.5 inches long, this first piece. And this end piece is 14 inches long. So, looks like let's try the other way around. Okay, so looks like it's about 1.55 times larger. So, yeah, a little bit more. So, let's try this math again. This piece right here, this little tiny gusset, is 4 inches long. Let's try this math again. Okay, that still works out to 6 1/4 though, so yeah. Maybe I did my math right. Maybe I didn't. We shall most definitely see eventually. So. This dude is 6. Right, so this piece allegedly should be about 9 1/3 inches long. And once again, this is the grain line, so it has to match up one way or another with one of these lines. I think, to save paper, I'm going to do it down here. Off this way. Let's see what we can do. So, luckily, the grain line does line up with this straight edge right here, so it does make it a bit easier to make it. So, see, there's that. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Down to here. 9 1/3, so like right there actually. And then this is 2 inches wide, so it needs to be 4, so to right there. And it does curve just a little at the top, just like that looks like. Nice smooth curve there. And this part right here, this little edge, that is just about 2 inches, just a little under. So, that should be about 3-ish inches, give or take. So like right there, maybe? 1, 2, no? Let's make sure. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and a bit. So 1, 2, 3. 3 and a bit right there. So about there, and curve it up to meet. And then it just curves. It's a fairly sharp straight line from here up until it starts curving just a little bit. It's a bit too much of a curve right there. I think it needs to come in. It doesn't curve out from this, it curves out from this line just a little bit, but not a huge amount, and then it comes up fairly straight to here. There. Alright, so I think that might, in theory, work. So, well, yeah, we'll see. Oh, and I should mark the grain line on all of these, because that would be helpful. Just, you know, keep track of what I'm doing. And this piece with this long, the front and back, the center front and center back, I don't really need to worry about that on because they are, by default, basically cut their long straight edges on grain, which does make my life considerably easier. But, yeah. Pieces like this, which actually have to go on the fabric like that, I do definitely have to indicate somehow that that is, in fact, the way that goes. So this piece is about once again, 9.5 inches. That does not seem right. Oh wait, never mind. Yeah, that does seem right. Which works out to about the 14-ish inches that we measured here. So that does match with how these two pieces appear to be. It's a little bit longer, but that's, you know, that is fine and dandy. So we will mark our center. No, wait, we don't need to mark that. Wait. So that needs to go here somehow. This is 1 2, or 1 1/4, so it needs to work out to about 1.5 inches. So from like there to 2.5 thereabouts, like right there. Curve a little bit, not by much. It doesn't need to be, you know, hugely curvy. So from the middle of that, I need to somehow measure over 14 inches. So 14 and a bit. Yeah, this is going to need to be moved over a bit because that's going to cut into that piece, and that we cannot have. Okay, so we'll instead move it over to like here maybe. So 1, 2.5-ish. We had that edge like there. Curve it nicely. Put that there to where it's lined up. 14 inches in line with this angle somewhere. So 14 and a bit. Well, more than a bit, honestly. 14 and like 3/4. There's that, which I'm not marking as the grain line. I'm marking this with a dotted line just so I can see how far down I need to go. And it's all the way up here to all the way down here. It's about, and ooh, I should measure how wide that little angle is. That is, it's about a little over 3/4 of an inch, so it'll need to be about 1.5-ish. Let's try there to about there. That looks realistic. It's a nice angle. Here we go. Now comes the extremely fun part where I try to replicate this shape. These are basically parallel lines right here, so let's move it back over to here so you can see again. There we go. All right, just staring at my hand. So, not really curved, they're just a fairly straight line and up by, oh, we can do this again. So that is about 3.5. So about like 5 inches, give or take. Well, 5.5 technically, but so. I'll tuck right there. Then do this along the same lines. So this one, it does narrow a bit. I will start curving a little bit before that, so we won't go quite up as far as that. It starts doing funky curves. It's curving out like this, so it can come up to like this piece. Do the thing that it wants to do, and I am still not at all sure that I'm sketching them remotely accurate, but you know, we shall see. It doesn't, that is not the correct angle right there. Okay. No, that is not at all the same shape. Like, it's vaguely the same, like, dog leg kind of shape, but it's not at all the right kind of angles and such in it. So, yeah, it definitely needs to smooth out in here. To come up, be way narrower there, and smooth out over this way. A lot nicer fashion. And this side needs to do some funky nonsense. We're going to narrow it down a bit. Well, not narrow, but we're going to do some stuff because that's way sharper of an angle than I think I'm supposed to have there. So we'll bring it in a bit more here. Start bringing it in a little bit sooner. Oh, I don't need it super narrow. It does need to be about twice that, so that's still like an appropriate amount for right there. But it doesn't need to be nearly so dramatically flared out, because it's still, you know, that's about half. Need to be a lot smoother about it. Okay, still not great, but better. We're definitely monkeying with some stuff here. But, you know, if it fits, it fits, and that's what I care about. This is the green one. Go. And now this is side front, so once we finish this mocking up, but that's not what we're actually doing with this part. We're just trying to measure stuff. Once we finish that, then we're halfway done with all this. We can probably fit this one here or thereabouts. And I could have moved this over a bit without being too fussy about it, but oh well. I swear, is that right? That seems wrong. No, that's right. This is a full 14? No, it isn't. That explains why I was having issues. So that needs to go down another good chunk. There we go. It's going to make much more sense. Here we go. So this down and this down, and this is going to make so much more sense. Like 5 and change. So half up to there, and half to like right there-ish. Bet that this works better now that once I actually measure the correct length. Okay, so from right there, it needs to be like that. So we're going to curve it in, smooth it to where it comes up to here, and knit out a bit. And this one does need to start coming outward a bit, like right there. Does need to be fairly narrow, not like, you know, the world's most narrow object, but it does need to narrow a decent amount there. Go fairly smoothly to there. It's a little thick through there, but not terribly bad. Should still probably smooth in a little bit there. Sorry, this one. Yeah. No wonder it looked wrong. It was way too short. There we go. Yay! Makes more sense. Sweet. All right. Now we maybe can move on to this part. This is the green line, so it needs to go in line somewhere, probably like right there. How long is this? This one is 8 inches exactly, so it needs to be about 12.5 inches tall. So that needs to be there. See, it'll start like right. Move over. You can probably stand and move over a little bit and save some paper. So there's that. This piece right here is 2¼ inches wide, so that would need to bump out to about 4.5. 2, 3, 4.5 thereabouts. It's going to need to angle up a good bit, right there-ish. Smoother angle somewhere in there to meet. Here we go. And now this one goes up to, it's 12.5. To about like right there. This one will need to be a full inch. About that. And now we try to make this do its thing. So about 5 inches up is where it needs to start narrowing. So save myself some hassle. Let's make it mark 5 right there. And then we shall start seeing what we can do about this. Now this needs to come in, needs to curve inward. Come fairly narrow right there. Then upwards and outwards. Walking out a bit. This needs to not curve quite so dramatically right there. It needs to narrow in a bit there. Okay, it's not, no, that's too bell-shaped. So curve it like that. It's not quite so dramatically right there. It's about half. It's slightly better. I still don't quite like it. Oh, this needs to not angle so much. It needs to come out to like there. That makes more sense. It still looks vaguely wrong to me. I think it needs to be slightly more in, maybe? See? Okay, vaguely better. We are halfway done with this part, and now we get to the part where I can just, make a rectangle, which sounds incredibly fake. Okay, so this rectangle is 7.5. So it needs to be about 11.5 long. And it's 3/4 of an inch wide. So it needs to be about 1.5. So will it fit down here? Might. It should, just barely. Wait. Oh wait, except that the, oh no, that should be okay. It's to be 11.5 this way. Let's see. So put it like right there. There. It's trimmed. Ooh, wait, no, that might not fit down there now. No, that's basically exactly 1.5 inches there. Oh. No, I don't think I can risk it down there, unfortunately. Just not quite gonna work. I'll erase and try again. Oh wait, no, this one. This one. So this one needs to be at this angle approximately. This one is, oh, this one's 9 inches. I wonder that math's wrong. Okay, so this needs to be 14 inches long. It seems like a much more realistic thing. So let's do B. Okay, it needs to be somewhere along that angle of 14 inches. An inch and a half. That angle. That's inch and a half. This angle down here is still going to be an inch and a half. It's going to be a slightly steeper angle. Man, I love sizing up things that are just rectangles. So much easier than sizing up funky stuff. Inch and a half. Did I not? Apparently I didn't. I sketched on something that wasn't this. So, inch and a half. There we go. And now we can just connect it. Save myself some hassle. Nonsense. There we go. Now, mark grain lines. There we go. Now we're halfway through. Man, this is a lot of pieces to deal with. I think I'm going to have to spool out some more of the paper. So we have, really, only 4 pieces left? Cool. Saves me some hassle. And it looks like, really? Oh, yes. Did I miss a piece? No, I just marked it wrong. This is actually side front. There we go. Looks like I get to do 2 of these pieces, and they do not have the same grain line at all, so I can't just, stack them like that. I mean, I could, but that would start to get confusing a bit, because I'm trying to have the grain line go with my marked grid here. Just because it'll be easier for my brain to math and to deal with later. This is the one that's 11 and a half. So, at an angle like this, 11 and a half up. That angle down there. This piece is still 3/4 of an inch, so I can just save myself some hassle and measure 1.5 inches. Make myself a fairly nice piece of nonsense. This part does curve just a little bit though. Yeah, that's an easy fix. It's just a tiny, tiny bit. And now, connect them. Okay, now just 3 pieces left, one of which is another one of those nice rectangles. However, one of them is this. So let's move everything over a bit so you can see again. And math again. This piece is 8.5 tall. So 13.25. And luckily this one is fairly straight up and down. It's amazing. It's a miracle when that's how that happens. And when I dump all the already sketched pattern pieces onto the floor. Let's move it over so that that does not happen again. So that's annoying. So let's do B, 13.25 on this line. So, let's see. It's right there. And 1/4. There we go. And this piece is 7.5. So wait a second. So it does curve down a bit. So it needs to be kind of like that. That looks realistic. 1.5 inches. Go bottom. Bottom needs to be, so the bottom on this is about 1 7/8 again. So it'll be just shy of 4 down to here. It's a fairly straight bottom piece, which is nice. So there we go, it should be okay. Now, time for the fun part. The making of the weird curve. I think that needs to be a little higher curved. Yeah, that looks more right. And all these curves are subject to change later once I've actually, got things working the way they need to be. And I've tested whether this thing actually fits me in any way, shape, or form. That actually worked way easier than I thought it was going to. That's nice. Okay. Yeah, straight up and down with a grid line. And the last 2 pieces are both cut or well, no, take it back. This piece is cut just slightly off grain. So that's minorly obnoxious, but you know, at the end of the world. But the last piece is cut perfectly on grain, and that is going to make my life so much easier. So this piece is 8 3/4, so let's go do that math. Alright, so 13 3/4, give or take. At approximately that angle. No, that angle, sorry. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13. No, I'm going to have to move that up a bit. I got checked. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That'll work. So this, sketch out the angle. Advance my paper a little bit. There. Now, 15 3/4 inches. There we go. This is 8.25, so that's 1 3/4. There we go. And now we're on our last piece. Yay, progress. This piece is strictly and exclusively on grain. So, you know, makes me happy in a big way. I can probably put it over here. So the long edge is exactly 9 inches, which will make the math, hopefully, slightly nicer. Yeah, so it's like 14 inches once again. Front and back of this are apparently basically the same size, which is nice. Alrighty, so 14 right there. Now we just 1 3/4 it over here. The top of it. Bottom of corset is 2 inches, so I'll need to be 4 with a slight angle. That's 3, that's 4 with a slight angle upwards. Good, and now we just see what we can do. It does not look like 14 inches. Is that 14 inches? Yeah, 14 inches. Mm-hmm. Now, just for symmetry and matchy-matchiness, we're going to mark the grain line. Yay! They're all marked out. Now I get to cut them out. Yay, jazz hands, and we hope that it, actually works. Okay, so I have to cut 4 rather, of each of these pieces because this is a two-layered corset, and I'm intending to make, the full corset. I am cutting it doubled though because it's a mock-up and therefore I'm not super concerned about it being perfectly on grain for every single piece. That's just not something I'm too fussy about right now. So now becomes my favorite part, and I'm sure your favorite part, where I pin everything and talk to the cat. So those are my scissors under there. And yes, I color coordinated my pin cushion friend because I was left unsupervised with a large quantity of sewing pins. I regret nothing. That was a great life choice. Makes me so happy. I'm not going to pin these super thoroughly on. I'm just going to pin them in a few places. Just have to hold it while I trace around it. Mainly because I'm not worried, I'm very certain that I'm going to have to adjust these pattern pieces before I make my final ones. So I'm not too concerned about their structural integrity through several mock-ups and making multiple copies of this thing. If I was, sure, I'd be somewhat fussier about it. But I'm not. And I dig out the pattern weights or something. I am leaving a bit of space in between the pieces because I am going to add the seam allowance to them. I'm going to be fairly generous with my seam allowance because I can always clip it off later. But for the start, I do want a bit of extra space for sewing. And yes, I'm going to have to cut these in batches. I'll have to cut one side's pieces and then move to another space and cut the other side. I should probably arrange these first to make sure I'm getting an efficient usage of fabric. And it doesn't matter if the pieces are upside down or not when you're cutting, because, straight of grain is straight of grain, no matter which side it's pointing towards. It's all the same grain of the fabric. Right, that looks like a pretty decent cutting arrangement there. So now I just have to, I have to spread them out a little bit more because I do want a bit more seam allowance than that in all these pieces. This is why we lay things out first before we pin everything. You can also scoot things up a bit. That's not going to hurt us. I have a lot of this plain cotton muslin. It's not like muslin is super expensive or anything. And you know, it's worth it to have good mock-ups. Mock-ups that don't make us want to claw our skin off because they're so annoying. Alright. Good enough to start with. We can always adjust it later. And a little bit more space between some of the pieces. And now we go back to pinning. And Theseus is over here being extremely adorable, hanging out and keeping me company. He does this super cute thing whenever I get up for work. He'll come and hang out under the coffee table and just keep me company while I get my brain up and running for the day's work. It's very endearing because he clearly knows that I'm not, you know, functional. I'm not, you know, equipped to really do anything with him, but he does want to hang out and spend time with me, which I find incredibly endearing of him. He doesn't have to. I'm very aware that he could just hide forever and I would never be able to find him because he's a black cat and we've got a lot of space where he could hide under furniture and such. And then, you know, we'd have a house ghost. But instead he just hangs out with people and is all cute and stuff. You know, solicits pats. Hot buddy. He's just a very sweet cat. Like, he's huge. He's a 20-pound cat. He's a little chunky. He needs to lose some weight, but that's something we're going to be working on. He plays really nicely with hands. He's smacked me once, seriously, but even then he was nice about it, and I deserved that smack. Like, I didn't realize I was bothering him when he wanted to be left alone, and he very firmly directed that he was to be left alone, and you know, I listened. I never blame an animal if they get fed up enough with something that I'm doing that they finally feel like they have to smack me to get me to go away. It's like, I don't understand people who do get mad about stuff like that. It's like, their ways of communicating with you are limited. Like, if they're upset and you're ignoring the signals that they have that aren't violent, eventually the only signals they have left that they can use with you involve teeth and claws. And that's something that we as the humans in the relationship have to understand and respect. It's like, it's an animal we have brought into our homes, and we have to learn how to speak to them and understand what they're asking us for, and you know, learn how to respect their boundaries. I don't know, that got kind of philosophical, but in my defense, it's like 1, maybe 2 o'clock in the morning. The pinning part always takes so little time when it comes to this part of the process. It's like, oh, you pin and then you just trace around it and add the seam allowance and call it good. And you just cut it out. And presto fixo, you have pieces. Feels very much like a kind of magic. Alright, and now we trace. I get to sit down for a little minute. Oh, and this part I do definitely need to trace. No, I'll need to trace on the other side, because I have to trace where the various, you know, little bits go, so they don't have to, so I don't accidentally sew through them. And I am hand sewing this whole thing because, once again, I have sensory issues with sewing machines, and I'm not going to put myself through that kind of nonsense when I have a perfectly good set of sewing tools called hands. It'll take me a while, but, you know, the results will be worth it. I feel like clawing my skin off because the noise a sewing machine makes is really atrocious. And I always appreciate when I'm watching someone else's sewing videos and they did not include the noise their sewing machine was making. It's like, yes, thank you. That was a really nice thing that you just did for me. Now this part's probably going to take a bit of time, so we will rejoin once I have all the pieces cut out. Okay, so all the pieces are all cut out and marked and seam allowances done and everything, and I've pinned each layer together. The pieces aren't pinned together in sewing order or anything, but the 2 layers for each piece are attached, so they're not going to get mismatched and obnoxious when I get ready to try to put them together. But as it is currently 4:38 a.m., I am going to go attempt to sleep and pick this up tomorrow once I've gotten some of the sewing done. So we will see you then. Okay, it's a few days later, just because life happens and stuff, and I've got the right side of this about halfway sewn. I've got both sides of the bust in, and I realized this is a mock-up. I don't need to be doing my, ultra tiny back stitches, so these last few seams that are, a more reasonable stitch length, those are going much faster than the first few ones that are tiny. I have noticed a few places where I'm going to need to make some adjustments. I already had to cut off a bit of this gusset right here just because it was sticking up to out there. Just, these things. Some of the panels are a little shorter than others, some are a little longer, so I'll go in once I've got everything sewn together and just make sure that the bottoms and tops all line up in a way that makes me happy and, actually looks nice and appropriate. Just, this is why we make mock-ups, but I think overall it's going to fit me pretty well. I might have to do some adjustments in the waist and maybe a tiny bit up at the bust, but that should be fairly easy for me to do. Alright, so the first mock-up is done. It is way large in the bust and I need to let it out a little bit right in the rib cage, and it doesn't have any of the cording or boning in it yet, but it seems to be going pretty well. I did spiral lace it on the back just because that's easier for me to do up and take down on my own, and I cheated. I used eyelet tape in order to, I have to put in all the eyelets by hand on every mock-up. Luckily, because I did do such a large seam allowance on all of these, I'm going to be able to just reuse most of the same parts. Like these ones I'll take in, I'll let out some of the seam allowance on the edges. And beyond that, the next mock-up I'm going to put in the boning and the cording. Pardon my voice, one of my housemates very inconsiderately gave me a head cold and I'm a bit miserable right now. But one half of it is fully sewn, and all the bones and cording and etc. are in. I just have to bind it off. I decided I'm not going to finish the eyelets, I'm just going to punch holes in this fabric, and I might end up deciding that I want a little bit more fabric weight there because it's just 2 layers and it's a little bit thin and fragile feeling. We'll see how I feel once I've got it on and laced up. But I am really pleased with how it's coming out so far. I'm definitely going to have to, press it in a very serious fashion. And yes, I deliberately left all of the ends of the bones a bit long so that I could make sure that they're filling their channels in the way that I want them to as I'm binding it off. But hey, progress! So 2.5 weeks later of hand sewing, we have the first, actual mock-up done. It needs to come in just a little bit down here. I'll probably take it in at this little flap, probably a little bit here just to smooth out that thing. But it is also going to get padded, not that much, but I'm going to pad it a decent amount. But overall it fits really well. I might mound up here just a little bit, just curve the line, just make it look a little more elegant, but I'm happy with it. My hands are not so happy about, 2.5 weeks of hand sewing, all of this nonsense together. It's super comfortable. I'm gonna give this about a week of wear to make sure that it is comfortable for long-term wear and to see if I can make the reed boning conform a bit more to my actual shape. And then I'll start work on the actual final item. I left all of the inside, the cords just uncut so that I can take them out and reuse it on the actual final object. Oh, hey, kitty cat. Hi, baby.